Is it okay if I record you, Chad? I've hit recording.
Oh yeah. I know it's funny because Zoom will be like, you have started recording, and then you gotta press got it, and it's like, okay.
Well, Chad, you know what?
What's
Let's as we kick this off, you kind of have wanted to have a conversation for a while around this, and so what would you want to what would you hope tonight would be about?
Well, first of all, this is what's really interesting about this is I think this is the most nervous I've been having a conversation with somebody in this format, and I think a lot of it has to do with actually talking specifically about the steps and with somebody who's gone through it, and I think I just want to be able to be as respectful as I can and as helpful and as honest as I can around it. And so I think I just one of the words that kind of was coming to mind for me was like I wanted to be able to talk about the steps, the 12 steps, in a way that is accessible for anybody, because I think oftentimes when I talk about them with people, and you might have this experience too, but they say something like, well, I don't really have an addiction problem, or they'll say like, well, I have an addiction problem, and it's like it totally misses the point, and it's understandable because it's hard to explain to somebody that the steps aren't about they aren't about release from addiction. At least I don't understand it that way. That's kind of a byproduct of what happens. But yeah, so that's one thing. I guess I just wanted to talk a little bit about that and our experience, and then maybe just talk about, like, share a little bit about your story and a little bit about my story. What do you think we should do?
No, I think that sounds good. And, probably, I don't know, it might make some sense for us to maybe do a bit of a series, on this. Maybe we kick it off a little bit. I've got how it works here. I might just read that, for folks, because I know a lot of people are interested, like in our little corner of the internet. They see that AA is doing something and doing something good.
Yeah.
And you hear a lot of people talk about, like, oh, I wish my church could be more like this, or I wish this organization I'm trying to set up could have those kind of results and do those sorts of things. I also know that a lot of people, particularly religious people, kind of get nervous about AA and feel like, I've heard this comment before, like some pastors will say, well, that's good and all, but we need to do more over here. Like, it's just, it's not quite good enough, because if you don't say Jesus or Allah or whatever, and yes, I said that word, right? That, we'll get into some of my story, but, I've spent a lot of time, went to seminary, did house church pastoring with people in recovery. And I've seen it work over and over. Like, a God of your understanding works perfectly. Like, you don't have to be afraid of the 12 steps. Like, and you have to give freedom for people to experience God, and they will meet him if they work these steps. And so, some of that is kind of talking some of that, and maybe alleviate some people's concerns. Like, if they have a family member, let's just say you're a pretty big Christian, you're worried about, well, I don't know about that God of an understanding. Maybe, like, get people to not worry about that as much. And I also think that maybe, to me, it's helped me when I deal with people just in everyday life. And maybe I do want to share my faith with someone, and giving them space.
Mm-hmm.
Like, not having to overstep my bounds and try and convert and everything else, which I can have a tendency to do, but try to take that spirit that I've learned in AA that works so well, and how do I do that out in the world? So those are some of the things I'd like to, as we talk about this, and who knows how many conversations we'll have, but those are some things that I think about.
Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, the series sounds cool too.
Because there's no way, Chad, you can talk about each step for an hour and a half on its own.
Yeah,
I know you.
And well, first of all, so look at how, so you got a guy dressed up like this. Of course, they're going to be weirded out by the AAs, and so there's a reason behind it. So there's a reason behind a lot of stuff that we would do, but yeah, and I think, well, the God of your own understanding thing, it's important because what might actually be, and I just want to say this because, and it's not supposed to be offensive, but honestly, what somebody who's not suffering from the problem, who doesn't recognize that they're suffering from a problem of a spiritual malady, which is what I guess I would characterize as the root of the alcoholic problem, just like I think it's the root of probably every problem that people are dealing with, probably every problem that people are dealing with. The problem, so the thing about the God of your own understanding is, it might have been that the God of my understanding that I had before I got here was had a lot to do with my problem, right? So, I run into that a lot. I run into guys who have a particular idea about what that is, and they'll die drunk. They just can't, for whatever reason, let go of what they have in their head about this God, and it will really block them from being able to take the steps. And I guess I've not had to experience that. So the only way I can really relate to that is that I can relate to being obstinate and all knowing in my own ideas, and I can relate to that. But I, before I got here, I know that the idea that I had of God was one that was blocking me from an entire life that I couldn't really engage with, and I didn't know that until all of that had been kind of removed.
It sounds, yeah, man. I can relate. Well, do you want me to read how it works, and
Yes,
then we can kind of kick. So for folks, at the beginning of every meeting, we usually open up with the Serenity Prayer. There's an AA preamble where we kind of talk about kind of what the purpose of why we're here is that, and then we, at least in every AA group I've been involved with, and I've been coming to meetings since, we can get into a little bit of my story, but since 1995, is we read how it works. And this is the chapter 5 of our Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. After they've shared some stories, they kind of help you define the disease. You read Bill's story. We get into talking to agnostics to try and open their mind to maybe be willing to follow a spiritual program. And this is what we read at the beginning of every meeting. How it works. Rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed our path. Those who do not recover are people who cannot or will not completely give themselves to this simple program. Usually men and women who are constitutionally incapable of being honest with themselves. There are such unfortunates. They are not at fault. They seem to have been born that way. They are naturally incapable of grasping and developing a manner of living which demands rigorous honesty. Their chances are less than average. There are those too who suffer from grave emotional and mental disorders, but many of them do recover if they have the capacity to be honest. Our stories disclose in a general way what we used to be like, what happened, and what we are like now. If you've decided you want what we have and are willing to go to any length to get it, then you are ready to take certain steps. But some of these we balked. We thought we could find an easier, softer way, but we could not. With all the earnestness at our command, we beg of you to be fearless and thorough from the very start. Some of us have tried to hold on to our old ideas, and the result was nil until we let go absolutely. Remember that we deal with alcohol, cunning, baffling, powerful. Without help, it is too much for us. But there is one who has all power. That one is God. May you find him now. Half measures availed us nothing. We stood at the turning point. We asked his protection and care with complete abandon. Here are the steps we took, which are suggested as a program of recovery. 1. We admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. 2. Came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. 3. Made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood him. 4. Made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. 5. Admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. 6. We're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. 7. Humbly asked him to remove our shortcomings. 8. Made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. 9. Made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. 10. Continued to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. 11. Sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood him, praying only for knowledge of his will for us and the power to carry that out. 12. Having had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all our affairs. Many of us exclaimed, "What an order! I can't go through with it." Do not be discouraged. No one among us has been able to maintain anything like perfect adherence to these principles. We are not saints. The point is that we are willing to grow along spiritual lines. The principles we have set down are guides to progress. We claim spiritual progress rather than spiritual perfection. Our description of the alcoholic, the chapter to the agnostic, and our personal adventures before and after make clear 3 pertinent ideas. A, that we were alcoholic and could not manage our own lives. B, that probably no human power could have relieved our alcoholism. And C, that God could and would if he were sought.
There's a lot in that.
Yes.
You could go through, you could go through that entire. That's basically 2 pages. One on front, one on back. You can go through that thing and basically. Well, it's but 2.5 pages. You could
2 pages.
You could basically spend 2 hours just breaking that thing down. There's just so much in there. It's ridiculous because so so Alcoholics Anonymous was just for anybody who doesn't know, like, so it was basically accidentally tripped over. It was a solution that was accidentally tripped over, and then through the timeline of history, there's basically no real solution to alcoholism. I mean, people they might have a religious experience. It wasn't common as far as I understand it. And so basically drunks were hopeless. I mean, they didn't have anything. And then like in 1935, basically 2 drunks accidentally trip over a solution to alcoholism. And then through like these seconds and inches, these little things that happen, they decided to try to carry this message to another alcoholic. And so it started working. And then, so they're like, wow, this is pretty crazy, dude. And like after 3 years, the guy, the one co-founder, Bill Wilson, was in the kitchen with the other co-founder, Dr. Bob Smith, and they decided to try and count the noses of those who had stayed sober, and they counted about 42 people after 3 years, and they were like, it was like, what, dude? Like they couldn't understand. Like this, it's like it was like discovering a whole continent. It was like unbelievable. And like, so modern people, I mean, this isn't even that long ago, right? This is like 80 something years ago, maybe 90 years ago. Like when I first got to AA, I thought, who gives a shit? Like AA is always going to be here. It's always been here. I don't really care. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't that impactful to me. And a lot of that had to do with the fact that I didn't understand what I was really up against. Just like the alcoholic has always had that problem where he didn't understand what he was really up against. And so like this is why it was so mind blowing for these two who are just basically laymen who followed their experience and sought God and helped others. And after 3 years, they're like, wow, 42 people are saying so. How do we replicate this? Because at that point too, like messages already started. It was only a word of mouth deal there. Like, it was a pay it forward type thing. Like, like say I helped you, Lance, and then you and I were like, dude, let's go to the hospital. We'll go find a drunk to help. We find a guy. We help that guy. He helps us, yada, yada. And then that kind of replicates. And then what happens is the message starts to kind of get diluted. So what happened was they had a whole series of things that they thought they should do. They thought they should make hospitals and all sorts of stuff. Eventually settling on writing this book called Alcoholics Anonymous. They were just called the Group of Drunks at that time, or basically they came from the Oxford groups, which was an evangelical movement. And so I tell you all that to say, like, that particular first part of the how it works there that you read, there was like this great story where Bill Wilson's sitting, he's in the middle of trying to write this book. He's not a writer. He's basically a failed, I don't know what we call that, a surety dude. He put together groups of people to buy stocks. That's how I guess I understand it. And he ends up, nobody. They're like, we got to write this book, but nobody can write it. So he's like, oh, fine, I guess I'll write this. And so he initially started writing just to, because nobody else would do it. And he's like having this terrible day. It's like, he talks about, there's a portion in a couple of different pieces of literature where you can find this, but he's like, it was this ridiculously bad day. People are downstairs at the meeting at the house. They're arguing about stuff. My wife's in the kitchen. She's cooking. She's kind of fed up with all these drunks who really don't give a shit about anybody. They're just kind of like selfish. And I'm up in my room, and and they're pressing me to finish writing this book. And I got a legal pad, and my imaginary ulcer is driving me nuts. He talks about this imaginary ulcer a lot which I can relate to. And he sits down to write this, and he's like, in a half hour, I had that what you read there, and it's like incredible to me. And that to me is like characterizes almost all of AA history, this divinely inspired thing.
Yeah, and that's where I've said this is, here's this ordinary guy. Now he's a talented guy now. Bill Wilson was an extremely talented guy. He's a bit of a polymath in some ways. But just always pulled his life down over his head as soon as he was ready to, achieve. But this book is the powerful impact of that, and the depth and the truth, and how this has been able to withstand time. So one of the things I was thinking here, Chad, is, don't want to get into my whole story. That's a whole thing. And, but I was almost thinking about, I was going to share parts of my story because I'm 52 years old. My first meeting was 1995. I wish that I could tell everyone I have 27 years of continuous sobriety, but I do not. And the good thing is like you and I are a good yin and a yang, in that you were one of those guys who realized you came in and you don't ever have to drink again. You do not have to. And then there's guys like me that did not have that continuous sobriety, but I kept getting back up and going back in. And, we just, whatever our journey is fine. And, but one of the things that's happened to me as I've come back in this time, is each time I have come back in, I've looked at how it works, and I tried to see, where did I fail here? Like what didn't I have that it was telling me I needed here? And as I've come back through, more has been revealed to me. It's been a humbling process as I've been on my journey. And so I'll tell a little bit of my story and kind of how it relates to how it works. And then I know you've kind of told a bit, maybe, we don't give a half-hour story. We just give a little bit. And, Chad, for me is I think it's like a lot of other alcoholics. I did not drink in high school. I come from a long and illustrious line of alcoholics. In fact, we of the Cleaver males, we don't know that anyone hasn't been a chronic alcoholic. In fact, I had an uncle that passed out in a car in the heat of the summer in Iowa and died. I had an uncle who died in prison. Got himself running in the wrong crowds, an alcoholic and addict. Grandpas, actually both sides. And so, that's something that has been kind of a curse on our family. My dad was an alcoholic, and he got sober on my 13th birthday, literally on my 13th birthday party. Went in, passed out in the afternoon, and all of a sudden the adults started going into the room, and then brought the kids in. He says he has a vision. He came to literally believe that God and said, "I need to go to treatment," and he went to treatment. So that was just wild. And so my family went through the best time of our life. My dad got sober, went to treatment, really poured himself to AA. We got ourselves back in the church. Our family started to thrive again. And, it was hard growing up as a kid with an alcoholic dad. And that was extremely difficult. And I saw the change. And I remember sitting at my high school graduation, and I had, again, I didn't drink in high school, great academic, athletic career, all this stuff. And he said, he's looking at all these awards and stuff. He's like, you never have to find out. If you don't ever drink, you don't ever have to find out if you have this thing. And, famous last words in my head, I'm like, well, that'll never happen to me. Because actually my dad gave me the great example. Like, I saw what that was, and as awful as it was. And then I saw the turnaround. And then I went off to a Catholic college, and let's just say I kicked my drinking career off. The first time I really started drinking was in college. When I really first drank, I hit a euphoria, man. I never felt more me. The universe opened up. It was an spiritual experience, like a clear wind was brushing through me. I could not believe how much I loved having alcohol in my system. I found my true love. And I drank from the beginning. I drank alcoholically. I drank until it ran out, so there was no more left. I drank until I passed out. I was the guy that would get hammered, wasted on Friday night. I'm up at Saturday morning. If someone's ready to go, I'm drinking at 11 a.m. while everyone's nursing a hangover. I always drank alcoholically. But I was able to be top of my class student too. So I was a party hard, work hard guy. I love that moniker. First thing happened to me, though, I lost my first job in college. I was an RA. I got drunk on a blackout. I made some crank call, which you're not supposed to be able to do, lose a job. But that was only a couple months left in college. And, I kind of moved out with a friend, and it wasn't a real job. So I haven't lost anything yet. Fast forward, married my high school sweetheart, and I was still drinking like as if I was in college. I was drinking alcoholically, weekend warrior, not every day. So I didn't have a problem. Well, I did have a problem. And one day she said, if this doesn't stop, I'm going to leave. Remember, I was never going to lose anything because of alcohol. I went to my first AA meeting because my dad showed me the way. I loved it. Went to lots of meetings. As honest as I could, I followed these steps, did 4 steps, 5 steps, 8 steps. I hadn't had that much happen in my life yet, though. I'll get to that yet. Went to 5, 6 meetings a week. Did that for almost 6 years, for 5 years. Went to law school, had a kid. Things are going great. I quit going to meetings. Got super busy and ended up leaving those meetings. I always thought, here's the thing, Chad. I always thought if given an opportunity, I could do it successfully. So I did not think I was powerless. And even though I was doing the thing, and I ended up going out and I drank for the first time again, Things were going great. Career's great. Family's great. I'm at a golf course. I have a couple near beers one Friday night. Finally, the family was out of town. And then I go out and get a 6-pack of Bud Light on the way home from the golf course. Finish that 6-pack. Ended up going back and getting a 12-pack in the afternoon. Drank through that. Feeling great. That feeling was back again. And then I was like, oh, I probably shouldn't be driving. Of course, I drove to the liquor store, went back and bought another 12-pack. First day back, I drank 30 beers.
Of course.
You know, and chronic alcoholic. In and out. Then I got a DUI. Well, isn't that amazing? Went through diversion, kind of went through some meetings, but I really didn't want to get sober then until I ended up getting divorced, and I only had my kids half the time. And I went out and I went ballistic. Half the time I was full on, no governor. And then I found my way to extracurricular activities. Mid-30s, I start using hard drugs. It's insane. Well, I'll tell you, within short order, within a year, I was back, helpless, broke, understood I was totally, chronically an alcoholic and addict, came back into the program and threw myself at it. I had more humility that time. Was going to tons of meetings, 120 meetings in probably 90 days. Like, I was all in. And then I had gotten remarried. It was a wife who I'd met out when I was in that life. She got sober. Lots of amazing things happened, but her health went downhill. And I ended up getting pulled out of my church groups and my meeting groups and everything else. Hear a theme. And all of a sudden, the pressure and the trauma, it was a brutal time frame. And I ended up, she had some pills out on the kitchen or the bathroom sink one night. It was awful, like financial stress, hospital stress. I had an autistic infant. Stuff was nuts. And I grabbed those Percocets and I had them in my mouth, Chad. And from that next night, I went out and I got some marijuana, and then I got some liquor. And then I was not sober the last few months of her life. I didn't know she was going to die. I knew she was very sick. So my wife dies and I wasn't the man I needed to be. Crushed me. Ended up going into treatment. Ended up coming back into the program. Throwing myself at it. More humility. I've always trusted that the AA program will work. I've seen it. Well, in that time frame, I couldn't go to as many meetings as I wanted, but I didn't make it because my daughter at the time didn't want to be away from me, was screaming. And I had wonderful women trying to help me out. I didn't force the issue. I needed to realize if I don't get in those meetings, I'm going to crash. And when I crash, how I'm going to blow out is I'm going to drink again. And I did. But I came back in. Fast forward, another stressful time, didn't get to meetings, blew out for a while, and resentment was getting me. And finally, this last time I realized, Chad, when it says, are you constitutionally capable of being honest with yourself? I wasn't truly honest with myself. I wasn't doing the little detail things that this program requires you to do. I wasn't doing the daily design for living. I knew meeting makers make it. I knew it. And I quit going to meetings each and every time. It said the result, like some of us have tried to hold on to our old ideas, and the result was nil until we let go. Absolutely. I'm a man of faith, and I'm sorry, I need AA and, for me, Jesus. Like, I need them both. And if I'm not in this program working the steps, my spiritual malady, my condition, my disease is cunning, baffling, and powerful, and it gets me every single time. Half measures availed us nothing. I wasn't a half measures guy, but I was a 3/4 measures guy. And 3/4 measures is not good enough, Chad. And so where I sit with you here today is I've gone back in. I've started going back. I've got an amazing sponsor. And I'd always kind of rush through the steps. Got eager, right? Man, I'm a sprinter, getting after it, doing my homework or whatever. I've really started to take my time, and I'm really slowly going through these steps because I have got to get this right. Because here's the deal. I have seen the people that do this, Chad, and when they follow the suggested program of recovery, they get out of their way. And that means everything you think about God, that means everything you think about how you need to do things, everything you think about, I need to be doing this. No, this 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 program is divinely inspired and it works. It's the solution for people like me. I know I'm a chronic alcoholic. So if I'm a chronic alcoholic, this is what I need to do. And so what's really been amazing to me is my journey and all that has given me finally the humility and the desire to say, I got to quit doing it Lance's way. Like it can't be 99% AA and 1% Lance. Like it's got to be 100% this program. And I marry it with my spiritual program, as you know, Chad. Like I need it all. And so what I can say is the beautiful thing. If anybody's out here and you've been in and out, maybe you've gone out. Here's my encouragement: is they have always welcomed me back with open arms every single time. There's a shame that keeps you out too, like you knew you blew it, and these people, count on you. Get your butt back in. Everybody wants you there, and so I'm the guy that I'm not giving up. I'm getting up off the mat, but I know this is how it works. And I need to finally start doing it. So that's a little bit of my story, Chad, and why I need to do this thing. And we'll go with these steps. Because to me, as I've learned this over, this is the way to live the God life. This is the way to have the life and be the man I want to be the husband I want to be, and to have my story finally end out there and to have it live in here.
Yeah, I mean, I have basically like two kinds of heroes that I encounter in AA for me. Um, the one that's probably more obvious is the guy that or gal who they're like, they've been around for like 40 years or 25 years or whatever, and they have like the most gentle heart, but there's also like this well, I don't know, there's just a real honesty about them. They know how to communicate something, often in very short phrases, or like, and they know how to listen if you have something to share. And then if like I share something with my sponsor and it's bullshit, he'll just be like, "Oh, come on, man." But like they're great examples of love, and they still like, they still have their sponsor that they're in contact with. They still sponsor men that are in the rooms. They still put away chairs. They still take commitments. They still like coffee or making coffee or whatever. Like there's a humility about them. And so those guys are clearly heroes for me. But then the other heroes that I admire so much are the guys that have been coming around for 2, 3, 10, 15 years and can't put together more than 60 days of sobriety. There's something about those guys that I don't know, man, because I just think, how the hell do you just keep coming, man? Like there's a guy in our area. He's everybody knows he doesn't stay sober, but he's still there, dude. And he still wants to be useful, and it's not. And I think he wants to be sober. It's just it hasn't happened for him yet. Um, and I don't know. It's very interesting to me. So that So like you're saying, if you find that you're in this deal, and it's not hooked for you yet, just keep doing what's suggested to the best of your ability. But yeah, so a couple things I wanted to ask you. So, because So how would you say, how would you, looking back on your experience, when you were saying like you stopped going to meetings, and then you would go back out, how would you say your relationship with God was in those moments?
The first time I went out on success, and I was attending church, but I didn't really have. I mean, I was eager, and was pursuing it, but I didn't have that closeness, that personal relationship. I was really seeking, but I didn't really have that knowing.
Did you have a
Um,
prayer life?
Pardon me.
Did you have a prayer life?
Yeah, it was extemporaneous, but it wasn't consistent enough.
Okay.
And that's something that's actually my outside. I've been doing liturgical prayers, which we do a lot of those in AA, like the Serenity Prayer and Our Father. We have step prayers, and
Yeah.
that's something that's new for me. I found something I can do on a daily basis that works. So that's been big. So it was sporadic. I would have peaks and valleys, and um, but again, so the daily disciplines, a daily design for living. They talk about how it can be, as prayer life can be as simple as put your shoes under the bed. So when you get up in the morning, you get down, you get on your knees, and you say, "Please keep me sober today." And then at night, put those shoes back under the bed, hit the floor, and say, "Thank you." Well, I didn't do that, Chad, because it seemed too
Right.
simple. Like, well, I'm doing more. It's like, no, why don't you make sure you're doing something there, bud? Because
Yeah.
I could go one day, I might pray for 20 minutes, and then I might not pray for 3 weeks.
Right. Right. So I asked because I hear a lot of people will say they'll say what you said. They'll say, "Well, I stopped going to meetings," and um, but I've also heard other people say, and I've had this experience where I stopped praying, right? Like, and that's for me. When I start getting close to the edge, it's not a lack of meetings because I could be, I could be in a meeting every day and feel like I want to blow my head off. You know what I mean? But if I'm not like really, because, and it's not a piety. It's not like this real pious thing for me. It hasn't been. My prayer, like the connection I have in prayer, isn't where I would like it to be. Um, but I also understand that's just where I'm at right now. So I need to, but I also recognize that I need to actually be doing something because um, one of the biggest tricks that we play on ourselves as alcoholics is I'm the one doing it. I'm the one staying sober. I'm the one going to the meeting. I'm the one picking up that guy. I'm the one sponsoring that guy. I'm the one calling my sponsor. I'm the one taking my cake or whatever, and so like there's, but and you did mention humility, and I think like um, the it's just so easy to think that I'm the one who's bringing about all this success in my life, and that's why like you'll hear people like if you go to a used bookstore and you're looking for this book, you'll find it in the self-help section.
Yeah, it's not self-help, it's God help.
It's I have a friend who says this isn't a self-help program, this is a self-abandonment program. And
So, so Chad, one of the things I wanted to ask you here, just kind of keep there, when you read how it works and you relate it to your story, like what are some key elements out of that? Do you think have been like either you struggled with or been critical for you, or hey man, you've stayed sober for a number of years. Like when we think about how it works, what are some of the big things for you there?
for me, the most impactful statement in how it works is where it talks about, it says that um, I can never I have a lot of this book memorized because I'm a weirdo. When you sit down and you read with guys a lot, you like this stuff just kind of, you just kind of remember some of it. But this one always it says, yes, says they are naturally incapable of grasping and developing a manner of living which demands rigorous honesty. Now, what it's talking about right there, um, they're talking about people who cannot or will not stay sober, and but there's this little nugget in there that says exactly what it's going to take to grasp and develop a manner of living which demands rigorous honesty. And I remember the first time that I really heard that, because like the only problem I have with the how it works portion is that we hear it so much that it becomes so like watered down. Like you said, I'll read at the beginning of a meeting, whatever, and like you know how like when you hear a song a billion times, it's like I don't care about this song anymore. You know, it's real easy for that to happen for a guy like me. But that's why I like reading this book with guys I work with, because when you sit and you read with them, you get down to the nitty gritty of it. Like you really do, even how it works. So like after hearing that, I don't know, like 500 times, one day I'm sitting there, I'm reading with it, and I was like, oh, a manner of living which demands rigorous honesty. And then I thought, that's really weird because nobody in AA is demanding anything from me. And I was like, yeah, that's weird. Like nobody is demanding anything from me. It says that this manner of living is going to demand rigorous honesty. And so if I'm going against the principles of this manner of living, I'm going to feel the demands of that. It's going to not feel good. And you know, like I don't suffer well. Like I was listening to a guy today, an old tape by a dude named Kip C, who passed away a little while ago, um, and it was just, it's amazing to watch what these guys have gone through. I mean, I don't know. Yeah. So, anyways, this manner of living. If I'm not living this way, oh, that's what I was gonna say. So, like this dude, Kip C, like many people, guys who, and it's not to say that we haven't suffered from our illness of alcoholism, but there are people who suffer in a way that I cannot imagine. Right? They've gone so far down that I just thank God that I never up to now I've never had to go down that far. I'm so grateful for that. But this manner of living will bring, if I'm fighting that, I will suffer. And so thankfully I don't suffer well, you know, uh like oh shit. And so then I kind of like, you know, kind of hop back into what I gotta do here, you know, and um yeah, so those are the demand the this manner of living. This manner of living is this self-abandonment, which looks like it doesn't look like a checklist, you know? I mean, the steps seem like they might be a checklist. I remember when I first came to AA, when they were reading how it works, and I'd be listening to it, and I'd never read it before. I'd be listening, and they'd do this, they'd read the steps, and I'd be like, oh yeah, I could do that. I'm doing that. Yeah, I've done some of that, and I could do, you know, it's like, uh, that's not a manner of living. Like,
Yeah, what I've thought about for me is like, because when I'm in active addiction, there's no way I can live any sort of a life of honesty, right? With myself, with others. It's just, and that life doesn't demand any honesty out of me. It
right,
doesn't. And then you start coming in here, and if I don't have the thing that's going to kill the pain and stop living the dishonest lifestyle, because this is saying it's still a solution, an awful solution, but it's I can knock myself out, right? And for me, like when I'm not living a life, the spiritual life that I've had these things in and out, but I also had been very close to God, and I had amazing friends and opportunities. I went to seminary, and I was doing like I've been sober more than my adult life than I've been drunk, actually, which is great, right? But the thing about is if you actually don't have the thing that can kill the pain, you better get some tools, brother, because that's awful. It demands
Oh,
rigorous honesty,
yeah. Yeah, dude. Yes. Yeah, because that's interesting. Because, like, yeah, I mean, okay, so I remember when I first came to AA, I remember I made this statement. I said, if I'm really honest with myself, I never really liked alcohol, and that it really caused a lot of problems. And then, like, looking back on that today, I think that's just such bullshit. Like, I loved alcohol. I loved
Yeah.
alcohol. Like,
Yep.
the thing about alcohol is I loved it. Like, what it does for me. First of all, it's my first real experience with the power greater than myself. It's something that has really brought it helped me to get connected, you know, and I had a lot of fun drinking. I mean, there's a lot of crazy stuff, but dude, I had so much fun, dude. It helped me to feel like a person. So if alcohol has that kind of power for you, you're probably gonna pursue it like I did. You know, now we take that away. And so now I'm in these rooms, I'm trying to do these steps, and I'm trying to be as honest as possible. And I'm going to meetings and I'm trying to make amends. And I'm doing the stupid fourth step and calling the dumb sponsor and putting away chairs at the end of the meeting and all this shit, you know. And then I kind of fall asleep at the wheel, right? And what can happen for somebody like me is I'm asleep at the wheel and I don't know it. And the demands of rigorous honesty come knocking, and they say, you honestly need this drink. And what do you know what I'm saying? It's either, and there's only, as far as I know, there's only two ways to treat alcoholism. One is to drink, and the other is the spiritual solution, which is so, and you'll have there's no choice about it. Either you treat it or it treats you. That's the demands of rigorous honesty. Like, and we think, well, I got to say in this, and I'll throw my will at it, and I'll be the arbiter of these, demands of rigorous honesty. No, dude, you got it backwards.
Yeah, and that's the whole easier. So, we thought we could find an easier, softer way. I mean, for me, well, it gave me the euphoria, and to be honest with myself, is it still remained a solution every time I went out. The consequences were ramping up massively, and the
Yeah,
shame I was feeling and everything else, it was there, but I could knock myself out. And
dude.
for whatever period of time that was, I could stop it. And so in many ways for me, as I resentment, anger, cunning, baffling, and powerful, the using for me was the easier, softer way. It's not, but it is, right?
Yeah,
It's this crazy thing. Um, for you, one of the things I think is interesting about your story I want to talk to us about is like, so you came in, I was a guy that was really had a hunger, was after it, I really tried to pursue God from my teenage years on, really did, was open to it, wanted it. And you were, some of your story I've heard is that wasn't part of your story. So when you came in and you hear how it works, and then they tell you, remember that we deal with alcohol, cunning, baffling, powerful, without helping us too much for us. But there is one who has all power. That one is God. May you find him now. Like when you were first coming in, when you were hearing that, what was that like for a guy like you coming into the program?
well, for me, it was like, sure, okay, because like uh, I did a lot of sure, sign me up in the beginning because, like, first of all, uh, okay, so just to give a little bit of backstory on my story, so
Yeah,
I
yeah,
go,
yeah. Please.
like, I'm in this band. We made a like this record. I liked the record. We went on tour, um, and I'm doing everything that I want to do. I'm also homeless. I do have a job, and I have a band, and we had a record, and we're on tour, and it's what I want. Like, my life is good. I'm good. I have had lots of uh, I've destroyed lots of relationships. There's a lot of pain. There's a lot of depression. There's a lot of just a lot of chaos in my mind and in my spirit. My spirit is, I'm bankrupt in many ways. I'm suicidal. I'm also very dramatic. And so, like, all of this is going on with me, and I end up getting my fourth DUI after my third DUI, like a month later. I haven't even gotten to court yet for my third. Now, there's just a disclaimer: not every alcoholic gets DUIs. In fact, there are people who get DUIs who are not alcoholic. Just so you know. So, but so
I got one, so I'm on the list.
right. But I just want to say that because, like,
but a lot of them don't. Yes, you don't have to live under a bridge to be an alcoholic.
Right. So, anyhow, so I burned this all to the ground. I'm in jail. I literally only have 2 visits the whole time I'm in jail. I'm in there for 7 months. I had my brother came to visit me in the beginning once, and he lives like, a few blocks away from the jail. And then I had my bandmates came to visit me to let me know that another one of our bandmates had passed away from a heart condition. And so, like, that just goes, I'm just trying to tell you, like, I push people away. Nobody wants to come visit me, and I'm just pathetic. I'm pitiful. And so I know that I have a lot that I'm going to be facing here. I'm also broken. By the time I walk into jail, I know that I can never drink again. I just know. I'm like, dude, I was just crushed just enough to recognize that all of this is my doing. And I don't think I can bear to cause this kind of pain on anybody else again. I cannot do this anymore. I wasn't even salty that nobody visited me, you know? I don't know much either because I'm new at this. My head's so far up my ass in general. I don't know shit anyways. So, but what I do know is, while I'm in jail there, somebody speaks in the overcom, like the whatever the intercom thing says, AA's here. Anybody want to go in? And I look around and nobody's getting up, and I'm like, I'll go. Everybody else is talking about how they can't wait to get back out and look at this vein, man. It looks so badass. It's gonna be fucking awesome. I'm like, dude, I don't want. I know, like, that's me. Like, I never did anything but that attitude is me. So I'm like, I can't do that. So I go to these meetings partly so I can get out of the pod, partly because I don't want to, I know I got some sort of a drinking problem. No, it didn't bother, the God bit didn't bother me exactly.
So you went to your first meetings in jail then?
Actually, I went to 2 meetings 5 years before this.
Huh.
My girlfriend at the time had left, and I was staying on my buddy's couch. It was like this flop house, and we're all just getting hammered all the time and smoking all this shit. And I mean, he's got, like, his kids are living there. There's like these 2 trashy strippers living there. It's just bad.
The insanity of that lifestyle. Yeah.
And one morning, and I didn't sleep with any of this. I'm just telling you, it was like, anyways, this lady, she says, I'm gonna go to a meeting. Want to come with? And I'm like, what's a meeting? She's like, an AA meeting. I was like, oh, okay. And in my very simpish way, I'm like, hell yeah, I'm gonna go to the meeting with the chick, dude. And I go there, and they still smoked in there, and they gave me like a wood chip or some shit, and I'm like, oh, what the hell am I gonna do with this? Now, I don't remember anything that was said at all. I went that day, I drank that night. Came the next day with her, drank that night. I don't remember anything that they said. All I remember was that there was something interesting there. That's all I
So you
remember.
think that plant, so as you look back and have you thought about, even though not, that was almost like a little seed got planted. So when you were finally ready, that became a viable option for you?
Yeah, well, but I always had the idea that I would either stop or moderate. You know what I mean? Like I never considered really
Yeah.
stopping. Like I remember I met a dude. We were playing these shows, and we like we're at the show before the show, and or it was after we played or whatever, and we're like I order a shot. And I'm like, dude, you want to get a shot? And he's like, I don't drink. I'm like, yeah, but like you drink a little, right? Like you can do a shot with me. He's like, no, I don't drink. And that was just like, I couldn't understand that at all. It did not register like at all. And then like, it was like 6 months later, was at the, another show and dude was there. I was like, hey girl, you want to get a shot? He's like, I don't drink. He's like, I don't drink. I'm like, what, dude? You don't drink? He's like, dude, we went over this last time. I was like, no. He's like, yeah.
Really? Still don't?
And I'm like, I don't know. I totally wiped it from my mind. I didn't even remember having that encounter, but like, that's how foreign the idea was.
Well, and
Uh,
also think about this when you're in the midst of your addiction. You're talking to people, but you're not listening at all.
oh yeah.
You know what I mean? Like he shared it, it went in one ear out the other. You had that moment, but then you're so self-absorbed. He has to tell you again.
Yeah. Yeah. But like, I remember looking back though, really being blown away by like, it's incomprehensible. Like, I don't understand that. So, so yeah, I never thought like, I just thought I'll leave it, like I'll be able to be able to drink a couple beers here and there, like I couldn't understand the idea of now this is for before I ever got into recovery. I just couldn't understand the idea of how could somebody like not go to a wedding or something like this. How could you not like cook burgers on the grill, or how could you like do laundry and not drink? How could
Go to a
you,
concert. Yeah, 100%. All the stuff.
and it's just, and so like, and this is why I like to kind of talk about alcohol as a god, because I sought that thing probably a lot more vigorous than I seek the God of my understanding today. You know, if I hope someday I can seek God with the same kind of veracity that I sought alcohol. Um,
So when you came in, so you come in, you have that, you've got that moment. And so, because I know that at the time you were certainly weren't, you talked about maybe you'd had some issues with Jesus or
oh,
whatever. But so you'd had that moment, you were finally done. And it's obvious because you remained sober since then. So you start hearing about this God program right away. And
yeah,
the thing I love about the steps is we do get a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps, but they give us permission right out of the gate to find God right now. Like, but there is one power, that one is God. May you find him now. Like it literally sets that up right at the beginning. So as you started into this and how it works, so you see that. So how did you even approach that? Because I know, like you said, you didn't grow up in a church. You weren't pursuing it in your outside life. Like,
yeah.
what did that look like for you? Because people are wondering, okay, it's a spiritual program. How's a guy like, my problem is that I didn't stop and slow down enough because I had a faith and I had a belief and I had some amazing things that happened to me, and I can get into that. My second time through, God really met me. But for someone like you who came in, um, what did that look like for you? Like
Mm.
first 30, 60, 90 days, like you're hearing this God program, like how did you start working that out?
Well, yeah. So the first, I couldn't. So when I was growing up, when I was like, before I was 12, the only thing I really knew about God was that if you do bad, you go to hell, and he's always watching. And, and I had a lot of chaos in the house growing up. And I was born with like this cleft lip and cleft palate. I was beat up and picked on a lot severely, and like there was just all this hell around me all the time. And I thought, it's the problem of evil thing. I thought, like, if there is a God, then he obviously doesn't give a shit. Like, look at this, and looking back, it's a little dramatic, to a degree. And then when I was like 12 or 13, I did go to church with my dad for like, when I lived with him for like, there's like 8 month stretch I lived with him. We went to this mega in San Jose, this mega church. And I liked what I was hearing. Now, none of it was really sticking, but I also saw how those people aren't, at least the people close to me, aren't acting very godly. And that's again a 13-year-old mind. Um, and then I ended up moving back to live with my mom and stuff. And then she would go in and out of church a couple times here and there, but I couldn't really. I didn't understand. I just couldn't. I couldn't or wouldn't be. It just didn't make sense. It didn't make sense. It was like there's some sort of Santa Claus thing. As far as Jesus, I wouldn't say I'm atheist, because I wouldn't say that I was atheist. Because I definitely always have had very strange experiences, and I always thought that there's definitely something happening. I don't know what it is, but there's something.
Okay.
I was always interested in like Edgar Casey and just weird stuff like this, or like I never believed in coincidences, things like that. You know what I mean? So like, to me, there was always something. I didn't know what that was, but this specific idea of Christ, probably because of a resentment that was blocking me, I couldn't understand how that could be plausible or real or anything like that. I was so blocked from it because I had a lot of stuff blocking me from that. But so what AA did was they said they use the guy's own self-centeredness against him. They say, why don't you just have your own conception of God? Basically, they're saying you can go ahead. You kind of like, I hate to put it this way, but like when I think about it now, it's like, it is funny that we use a guy's own self-centeredness on him to say, no, you can have your own conception of God. I don't care what it is. And all they care about is, are you seeking or not? Right. And so like, I could do seeking. That's easy. And so that encouraged me, the idea, because nowhere in there, and anywhere in the steps, anywhere does it say that I have to believe anything. What it does ask me is, it suggests that we seek. Am I willing to believe? Right. It says, it does, like, there's this question in here. It says, let me just read it real quick, because it makes perfect sense to me. Uh, uh, I can't find it exactly right now. But basically it says, we now ask you one question. Do you now believe, or are you willing to believe that there's a power greater than yourself? As soon as you can make an admission of that sort, we can tell you that you're on your way, right? So they're saying that whether I believe or I'm willing, even like I don't, but I'm willing, which means I make these expressions, I seek. We're on the same footing. And like that made sense to me, and because I'm flaky, so I don't have to commit to anything, but I can be willing to believe, which means I could be out there seeking, which is what I did. And and so I didn't have a problem with that too much. But every time that I would hear about Christ, it would bother me a lot. Like it I don't know exactly what it was about it, but I would just bristle with this. I would just be so angry. I was so, remember this with my first sponsor, Larry. I'd be so pissed off, dude, because he was Christian. We would talk about stuff, and he was trying, I think, in a way, to share his experience with me with his God, and I'm leery of it, But every time that this idea of like Christ is my savior, that phrase would come up, it would just make me want to rip my skin off. Because like I just thought, what kind of a spiritual leader would say that I'm the way? Like I thought it was total lack of humility on Christ's behalf. It's so ridiculous, dude. But I didn't understand, and I was still operating with much of a 13-year-old's point of view as far as spiritual matters goes, and probably there's like as I understand it now, there's probably some modernist shit going on there that's blocking me, like I'm willing to believe in that there's no such thing as a coincidence, but I'm not willing to believe in Christ. It's so bizarre. But anyhow, so one time, this is like way back, my sponsor, I'm really upset about something, and this, okay, my pathway with God has been like this. It's always been like he's meeting me where I am the whole time, all the way through. First, he meets me with like some desperation, right? I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to drink anymore. So he shows up and says, "Oh, do whatever you want." And then Edgar Casey thing shows up, which was, I don't even get it today, other than there's this weird coincidence. So he meets me there. And so he's dropping like these little breadcrumbs along the way. And I'm like, oh, piece of candy. Oh, piece of candy. And it comes up to this time where my sponsor suggests, because I'm going through this like real bad resentment against the church or whatever, and Christians and Christ. And he says, why don't you read this book called Conversations with God? And I was like, dude, I'm not reading that damn book, because all I heard was it's called Conversations with God. And clearly I think he's trying to okie doke me on some Christian shit here. And, but I was just so upset, and he just looks at me before he leaves. And I was like, probably just like in these really bad tirades, this really bad mood. And he looks at me, he hands me this book. He says, Chad, just read this, won't you? This is fine. So he left, and I opened it at random. There's a section in this book that I'm reading, and by the time I'm done reading this page, I'm in tears. And I thought, I don't know, it just released me from something, and it allowed more of the sunlight of the Spirit to come in, and allowed for even more like heavy duty type of foundation for whatever was going to come. It was
So
pretty good.
how many years was that for you before you kind of hit that level? Is that 3, 4, 5?
About 2.
2 years. So you're 2 years in.
Yeah.
One of the things that I love right before How It Works, when we went the chapter of the agnostics, the very last sentence before we read how it works and get into steps, is when we drew near to him, he disclosed himself to us. And the thing that I like about, like for you, Chad, and when I think about, like, a lot of people are nervous about AA or whatever, is like, it's this perfect example, which is like, it literally is making your skin crawl, even hearing about it, thinking about it. I know I've heard you in the past share, seeing hypocritical Christians, and I don't want any part of that. And the beauty is we get into this, is the thing that I like is where it talks about like our third step, like you clearly had accepted powerlessness. You were there, that you realized your life had become unmanageable. You had hit those levels there. But I like that made a decision to turn our will. Our will is a lot of our thinking in our mind.
Yeah.
And our lives over to the care of God. And what I love about is there are these practices. So when you start working this step and you start getting some humility, you start listening to a sponsor, you start doing some things, even if it sounds stupid, you start doing it, right? You start
Yes.
going through these steps. It's got to be action. You can't think your way to God, man. You can sit there and try and read me your Bible verses, and you can try and tell me all this intellectual stuff and scholastic stuff, but you got to get in action. Because how can you have any faith before you've done anything to have something show up, so you start building that trust? And so we seem to get the cart before the horse. Like, we want to go out and tell you the gospel and tell you these ideas about God, and here's these things, and let me sit down, I'll give you the Romans road, and do you believe now? Okay, great. It's like, whoa, 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 whoa. So I love the fact that, first off, there's enough trust in AA. They knew it because they'd done this stuff and they met God. Like, they know he's real. And then the people that are Christian, like, if you're really confident that Christ is the one true God, who do you think they're going to meet when they go on this spiritual journey? I mean, seriously, right?
Yeah,
And it's giving,
rigorous
yeah,
honesty.
yeah. And so, but I like, for me, it sounds like what happened for you. So it's 2 years in, but you, and I guarantee, and just, I know you did it perfectly, but you got a sponsor and you were working through these steps. And it was through that action that got you to a point to where you didn't want to read the dang thing, but after 2 years, you'd done enough and you trusted him enough that you're willing to finally read this thing. And as soon as you had some willingness, unbeknownst to you, all of a sudden you find yourself bawling. Like, it hits you unawares. Like, you couldn't have thought your way to it, but because of what the program did, sponsor, you did listen. You had enough humility and at least say, okay, I'll do it. Because you could have just said, no way, because you can sit there and did it. But so to me, this program of action, this design for living, how it works, you have to start doing the things, living it, in order to have any sort of a faith develop.
Right. Well, and that was that particular part of my life, that gave me, like, a way bigger platform to stand on as far as, like, trusting God. Like, I started to have some real concrete.
After the conversations with God moment?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, cool.
Concrete experience with God there, and now, like, it helped me hook into the rest of the work in the steps, right? Because, like,
Explain that a little bit more, like, because you're good at that. So you got that contract, but so what did that feel like before? Like, can you give me, like, so as you were doing it, you said it wasn't concrete. It was like, so what did that feel like? Like, what were you pursuing? Like, what did that look like for you before you hit that conversations with God moment? And then we'll go from there.
oh, it looks like I don't want to go to prison, so I'll just say yes. I'll do this and that, and I'll go to the meeting. I have a schedule I have to keep to with my probation officer in this alcohol treatment court that I'm in. I got this and this. So I'm more concerned about serving these people who are my God right now, because they have the power over my life. So in many ways, like, it worked perfectly, right? I mean, and so, like,
So were you praying at all or doing any of that stuff during this time?
my sponsor suggests that he gave me a prayer sheet, and again, I'm just going through motions. I suggest to guys, if you feel like you're going through motions, that's fine. If you feel like you're praying to the paint on the walls, pray away, dude. I don't give a shit. Like, I need you to do something, because, and because we will run into this. Whoever's listening to this, if you end up going through this path and you decide that you want to stick around and you want to help people out, you're going to run into this problem. And if you're new and you're on this path already, know this: nowhere in there does it require you to have a belief in anything whatsoever. It asks you to be a seeker. It says, for those who earnestly seek. So, because I've worked with guys who, they say, oh, I don't know, man, I can't take this third step because I don't believe in God. It's like, who the fuck said you had to believe in God? Right? It's like, it just asks you, are you willing to make expressions of willingness? Which means,
Right, because the belief is a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity.
right. which means sobriety. And my
Yeah,
that's how I understand it.
that's the belief. And then the other thing is like you're making a decision to turn your will in your life. Now that's an action step, right? Because there's a lot you start doing there to do that. And so, the amazing thing that happens, and this happens to all of us, is, and I've really found for me, it's like about my prayer life, I've been doing these liturgical prayers and it's blowing my doors off. But that's what like AA actually suggested in our book. But your sponsor, because you don't even know how to pray, but you had enough willingness to at least start reading the sheet.
Yep.
And I know a lot of people say, well, it's not from the heart or whatever. No. Just starting to read the sheet is
Yes.
fine. It's fine.
Yes.
That's good
Yes.
enough.
I'm willing to, because you know what, dude? Nowhere else in my life was I ever willing to wake up in the morning and the first thing I do is hit my knees and read off a sheet. You know what I mean? Like, why can't that be good enough for a guy?
Humility, willingness, action,
Yeah.
seeking. God sees that.
And like, to me, the humility piece is not, it's not equivalent to like a pious feeling. It's, I don't want to do this, but they suggested I do this. Oh, fine, I'll do it. Like, that's humility. Because if I'm not willing to do that, my ass is going to get humbled, period. So I better be willing to do some stuff that doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't have to make sense. And so that's what was suggested. Like, Chad, we're going to go to this meeting. My sponsor would lean over to me early on and say, oh, why don't we stick around and clean up some chairs? What? I don't want to clean chairs. It's like, who the hell asked you what you want to do? I don't care what you want to do, dude. Like, I brought you here. We're going to clean up some chairs. Like, these people have gone out of their way to try and save your life. The least you can do is clean some damn chairs. The least you can do is read when somebody asks you. The least you could do is go up and take a coin. Oh, but I'm embarrassed. Who gives a shit about what you think? The guy over there with like 24 hours needs to be able to see the guy with 60 days take a chip. Because it's like, this works. And we need to be willing to be stretched. That's the whole thing is, right? And that's
Yeah.
how
So
people with
yeah.
like years who stick around, they're still being willing to be stretched.
Right. And so obviously, clearly for you, you're willing to be stretched. So you do that. And so I get that. So really it was, as you were describing it, we're doing it, kind of going through the motions. We're open to something, but that conception was just not really any sort of concrete thing. So you read Conversations with God, you start crying, and then now you start saying you have some platform. So I think this is good for people to hear, because I think look at the any-face, but I think a lot of Christians are concerned that, well, if you don't interject and start talking about Jesus and do this thing or that way, like to just allow the patience to happen.
Yeah.
And so here's the guy, Jesus is making his skin crawl. And by the way, if you're out there and you need to be in recovery, you do not have to believe in Jesus to be an Alcoholics Anonymous. You do not. I've seen successful people, and I know that's a heresy, but God will show up, and it'll be a God of your understanding, because you'll know it and you'll see it and you'll feel it and you'll experience it. Now, a lot of people do end up, finding their way out to church, but there are a lot of different pathways. So now that you get this, now you've had this platform. So what did it start looking from that moment on for you? Because that's a big, like, that was a big moment in your spiritual growth right there.
Yeah, it started to, from that moment, I started to have my vision started to be turned more into, and I started meeting other people too who would say things like, "What is God trying to show me today?" And I would think, and I would try. And that book talked a lot about you could see God in everything, and so it was like an interesting way to see the world. It's like, it was exciting. It was like, oh yeah, like you turn on the radio, and there'd be some song, and any song would do, and it'd be like, that's so cool. And there's people, I know there's people who think that's bullshit. It's like, maybe, but to me at the time, that's as real as it was getting, dude. And that was real. So, like, that's, and even today, somebody who would consider themselves Christian, like I still believe like you can have a church full of 1,000 people and there's going to be 4,000 gods in that room, because that's how people are. Just because you and I say that we believe in Christ doesn't mean that we have that same vision. So like I trust that God actually God does all the heavy lifting, and like I don't have to be worried about the little details. It's they're not relevant to me. They're
Yeah,
not.
I
My
heard a
details
speaker.
aren't relevant to the next guy, because like
Right.
I could totally derail this dude. Like no,
Yep.
gotta stay out of it.
Well, and I think even, no matter what your faith is, but I think if you would come in, um, uh, gosh, I'm trying to remember the speaker. I listened to this, and it really made so much sense. And he was like, "Listen," and he made the comment. He's like, "Every one of you who's sitting in church, you all have if you're doing it, you all have a God of your own understanding, because it has nothing to do with dogmas or doctrines or whatever. You're a unique you're a unique creation, and you are the only one who's living your life, and he
Right.
discloses himself to you in your life. And by the way I see it is God is within you, right? We're all children of God. You hear that in AA, but in my faith, where right now we all are, we bear this image, and we have this diamond that's down there. And so even if you're sitting in a dogmatic church, everyone only has a God of their own understanding. And
Yes.
if you don't have a God that you have experienced, no, I mean experience, that can stand, if you don't have that, and it's just an idea, then you don't have, you're going to struggle. You're going to struggle. And so the thing
I
that I love about the steps and like hearing your story is, and I've experienced, and I saw people in it, and even being a Christian guy who was sold out, and I had, more earlier in my sobriety, before I had a powerful moment reading the big book like you, everything changed after that, is I could see all these people from all these different, some people hated God, some were atheists, some were super devout but couldn't stay sober, like they talk about in the 12 and 12. I had all these people, but they went on this path and they blossomed, and these people had a sort of faith that could withstand anything.
Mhm.
Didn't mean their life was easy. In fact, life goes on. And so there's something about this program that produces people that know God.
Yeah, and guess what else? Those people who don't profess what you believe, they may lead countless souls to the God that you believe in. So what are you so worried about? I mean, it's ridiculous. And I hope that God is far more than the name that I can give him, or the name that anybody can give him. Like it's just it's ridiculous. So so after the conversations with God thing, and I challenge anybody to read it. Some Christians, they'll call it heretical and all this stuff. I don't even know. I don't even give a shit, to be quite honest. I'm probably a heretic myself. Like I'm the kind of guy, I attend a Lutheran church that I very much enjoy, and I attend with my wife. I don't really care that it's Lutheran. You know what I mean? I don't care. Like I'm there to be a part of the community and all that stuff. So I understand why people might have those things, but so what happened with me after the conversations with God bit, I I was there's something I found that I was using to define my God, and it's in the book of Alcoholics Anonymous on page 46, which this page is amazing, by the way. But it says, the realm of the spirit is broad, roomy, all inclusive, never exclusive or forbidding to those who earnestly seek. It is open, we believe, to all men. And that was the God of my understanding. That was it. That was, if I had to define it, that was going to be the best I could do, because like it allowed my vision to be. I knew that I didn't know much, and I knew that anything that I was going to put on it was going to be probably not accurate. So if I can have this just kind of like this attitude to see, then maybe he will reveal himself, which he constantly did, dude. I mean,
Breaks
like,
God out of the little box we put him in. You know what I
oh,
mean?
if
Breaks
I
him
can
free.
look back on my experience, like long before I was ever even captured by Christ, there's so many amazing and unbelievable experiences that I had through this process of being willing to try to set aside what I think I know and walk through these steps and clean up my past and be honest, and most of all try and help another alcoholic, and then try to act differently in my day-to-day life all day. Like all of these amazing things, like I couldn't, they're countless things, dude. It's
Well, and the
countless.
thing that for people like for us is what AA does is put the act as if in action.
Oh
So
yeah.
where Jordan says act as if, and I think a lot of people who listen to this can hear that. And there are a lot of people that are still standing on the sidelines. They're reading about it, they're talking about it, but they haven't got, one of the reasons why AA works is it's a community of people that come to, it's a we program. I don't know if you noticed throughout, we read how it works in these
Yeah.
things. It says we admitted, we rarely
Yeah.
have we seen a person fail. It's a we. You come into community of non-judgmental people where you are coming into the presence of the sacred God. It is holy, it is sacred, and God is moving through people, the vessels in that room. God is moving there. And then you're moving in action in community, in fellowship. And so, if you're not an alcoholic, Chad and I are going to talk about maybe if some folks were interested, if people. Now, we're just talking about this is an all-in program. Like, you got to set all your old ideas aside. And I would even say, for me, setting aside my ideas of Christ and coming through some things I've had happen, but my most powerful moments and using AA and my orthodoxy and everything else is allowing me to just blow the doors open on my
Yeah.
on my faith.
I mean,
And so if
exact
so if you're acting as if, I hope you hear that. Get into action. Start doing things. You don't say, well, I don't want to do that. I don't know if I want that. And I don't know if I want to do this or whatever. Get moving. Get moving towards, and keep an open mind, and he will show up. But it's going to require doing things you don't want to do, doing things you might think are silly. It's going to require you to confront yourself, get honest. It's going to require you to restore relationships. There's a lot of stuff you're going to have to do. But in AA, there's too many people. Like, you see all these, there are saints sitting in those darn rooms. Nobody will ever hear about them, but there are literally walking saints. We're witnessing people that are literally saints, and this is what they did.
Yeah, dude. It's and the even the idea about laying aside what I think I know, even about Christ, that's a very fruitful endeavor, because like even today I have to be willing to lay aside what I think I know about my wife, right? Because she's not the same exact woman that she was when I married her, and that was only 2 years ago. Like it's growth, and so I think another trap that we set is for ourselves is a set it and forget it. I mean, if you could do that, good luck, dude. And if you could do that, even if you're not alcoholic and you are like kind of like feel like something is stale in your life, or you're just going through motions, even like the church thing, or whatever. Like, there's a passage here that I really enjoyed. It said, we found that as soon as we were able to lay aside prejudice and express even a willingness to believe in a power greater than ourselves, we commenced to get results, even though it was impossible for any of us to fully define or comprehend that power which is God. And I love the word prejudice, because I had a lot of ideas about what I thought that was, like, for many, many years. And I remember I got in this little kick where I would find words in here that I thought I knew what they meant. And then I would look them up, and then I would be like, oh, whoa, that's weird. So, like, prejudice is to have an opinion about something, one that's not rooted in actual fact or experience. right? So I can have all sorts of prejudice. Like they can even be like, you know, I can have a prejudice. It doesn't have to be even be negative. You know what I mean? Like I can say something is good, but I have no experience with it. That's a prejudice. It's a prejudgment. You know. So one of the practices that I've tried to really implement as a principle in my life is to try to lay aside my prejudice best I can. Right? It's a great principle to live by because, like, I believe there's always more to be revealed. Like, who am I to say I have all the answers about everything? It's ridiculous, dude. That's what got
It's
me
a
into this
further
trouble.
up. It's a further up, further in. And what I love, and I've actually experienced this. Our big book tells us this. It tells us also get away, put down your prejudice against religion. It tells us be quick to find where religious people are right, seek them out. If you have a community, they're telling you go plug into that community, do those things too. You need further up, further in. It
Oh yeah,
tells you go find prayers, like wherever, go ask them for prayers and do those prayers. It says that in the big book, you know. And so the beautiful thing is that it it is broad and it is roomy, but it's also, you know, as we're talking here, and I want people to hear this, it's also not telling people to not go out and find a church to go to. It's telling you the exact opposite. Right?
yes, absolutely. It says, in fact, it says you and your family can bring a new light to a church. You know, like, and like, because, you know, I'm sure that there's churches that are out there where they might be feeling stale. I don't know, but like you get somebody who's on fire as far as like, you know, he's excited about life or she's excited about life, and they're out there sponsoring people and they're seeking God. They're hitting their knees every day. They're in the community. They're being love and service. They're all those different things that they might hope that they might have in some of the people in their church, right?
And
You
if
bring
you're in AA, yep. And if you're in AA, this is the one thing. So, you know, I ran around with a bunch of church guys, and the cool thing is, and I'm always very open that I'm in recovery. I've never hid from that. Um, is it's a service opportunity because I get the calls from all my friends. Hey, Lance, I got this buddy, or there's this guy we know, or this whatever, and it's like, uh, he's really struggling. Like, and he could be in church or a friend or whatever. And my first question is, well, I'll talk, but is he want to even talk? Like, is he even open to it? Because I can't convince anybody to stop drinking. And then I always say, you do know what I'm going to do is I'm going to invite them to come to a meeting with me because that's the only thing I have to offer an alcoholic. I
Yep.
can share my story with you one on one, but literally, I really like once I've shared my story and I've shown you the door, you can keep coming back. I'll listen, but I'm just going to say, here's the deal. Want to come meet me in a meeting? Because that's the only way I know. Like,
Yeah.
and very faithful, like strong Christian men that I've met, and they are faithful and they're out there trying to do it all on their own and they're crashing. I keep telling them, it's like, okay, you don't have to set that aside, but boy, this appears to be the thing. The one thing we need to be doing in addition to that is this seems to be the solution for us. So I'm going to bring you to a meeting. So it's a silver. So those of you, if you're in recovery and you're not going to any churches or whatever, it's a great service work opportunity because I promise you, you will get used a lot.
Yeah, I mean, there's a level of, and I think it comes from a place of care, but I think it can also be, at least from my point of view, it was perceived as a level of arrogance that, okay, so what ends up happening eventually is I had this kind of like road to Damascus moment, this weird moment where I like, where I was, where I guess I can best say is I was captured by Christ, right? And I had this moment, and I'm like, and I went out like 2 weeks later. So, so March 4th, 2021, I reached out to Paul Vanderklay. I asked him, how, you know, I got this God of my understanding. I feel like there's more. How can you help me? He sends me to the Discord. I'm on there by by probably March 18th or something like that, I have this moment that changes me. March 21st, I'm in a church and I'm being baptized. And I didn't go there to get baptized. You know what I mean? Like, I went there to meet my sponsor and say hi. And I walked out of there soaking wet from being dunked in the tank. And, and so I started to stick around in that church. And, and this guy knows I'm in AA. He knows my sponsor's in AA. My sponsor goes to this church. And he ends up doing this sermon where he talks about, and I'm in the back of the room. He talks about, you know, you can't go to heaven on a higher power. And there was some other stuff leading up to it that had me iffy on this place, leading up to that. But as soon as he said that, I got up and I left. I'm like, I didn't make a scene. I just stood up. I was at the back of the room. I walked out, and I called my sponsor called me later that day, and we were talking. He's like, I was like, dude, I don't know, man. There was something really weird about that statement. It made me feel really like there was something backhanded about it. He's like, yeah, I don't know, man. That was really weird. And he was even like, that was weird. He's never said anything like that before. And so the next morning, I get a call from this dude, the pastor, and he calls me to tell me that he was offended that I got up and left. And I told him, I said, well, I guess I just disagree with what it is that you're doing. I said, you know, there's nothing wrong. If you want to do that, that's fine. I don't care. Like, it doesn't bother me. I just can't be a part of it. You know, he's like, well, you know, AA is an error and this and that. I'm like, dude, you don't get it, dude. I said, you don't understand. I said, first of all, have you ever read the literature? He said, no, I've never read the literature. I said, before you go and start doing the stuff that you're doing, I think it would be wise of you to read the literature because it may be useful. So I said, secondly, this is a life or death situation. And you do not understand. I'm in the front lines. I'm in the detoxes. I sponsor a lot of men. I see a lot of people not make it because they're hung up on some idea that they can't get past. And you are willing to let somebody do that just so they believe in what you say they should believe in. I said, I'm sorry, I cannot do what you're doing. And I said, I'm not trying to be rude. I apologize if I offended you, but at the end of the day, I cannot do what you're doing because, like I said, you just don't understand. And he kept going on, but their AA is wrong and this and this. I'm like, dude, okay.
That's why I left.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, and again, like, I think his heart was probably in the right place. However, there's a level of arrogance there where you're willing to let somebody walk off a plank because they won't believe as you believe.
Well, because that's a person who's stuck in a dogmatic confessionalism mindset, doesn't have a broad enough room, and and to be fair, it's just ignorance. Because the good news is I've been very fortunate, and I've seen it. The vast majority of true pastors, pastoral care people, and I don't care if they're Orthodox priests or they're Jewish rabbis or they're evangelicals or charismatic, they've someone in their family or something, they understand that there seems to be something that's happening there that we can't do for you here. So you go do that. And you know, when I shared that video with you, I love that Orthodox priest who is in recovery. And one of the things he talked about to them is like, hey, there's something going on here, and it's to be able to share your story and to do these things. And I loved how he said, and give them some time. Like let them just take some time. Like don't let that work. And there'll be a time, you know, that they'll come to church or whatever, but don't rush them into confession or try and do too much. Like let AA do its thing.
Right.
You know,
That could be 5 years, by the way.
Absolutely. And so, but the good news is most people get it, and very few people take the position of thinking it's an error. I got to fix you, or okay, when you come out of here, let me get your God stuff straight. You know, it's like no, like just
Yeah. Part of
and
with this guy was he actually had a drinking and drug problem and had his own religious experience without the help of anybody other than the church. So, I mean, I can't fight his experience either. And AA doesn't have like a cornerstone on this deal. But I tell you what, man, when we're talking about gambling our life, like AA doesn't save souls. AA puts us in a position to have transformation so that we can actually help people find a life to live.
yeah, I've thought about that a lot. And do I think there have been some chronic alcoholics that have such an experience and they find a design for living and they don't need AA? I would have to say absolutely yes.
Yes.
But at the same time, I think some of these people may have been problem drinkers. There's a difference in that, Chad, right?
Yeah.
Problem drinkers, heavy drinkers, had a problem, were out of control, and that was enough for them. I can just say for my own story, but I've seen it play out in enough people, and I've listened to enough folks that talk about this, that it would appear that if you are a true alcoholic, a real alcoholic, that you've admitted you're powerless over alcohol, you've got this thing, whatever it is, it appears as if you need to be with other alcoholics in recovery who have a spiritual recovery. It appears to be the place you need to be. And I believe, now, listen, the steps were based off Christian principles. It's the Sermon on the Mount and the book of James. I spent all this time I look at all the Orthodox way and it's like, oh, it's the way of Alcoholics Anonymous. So, you know, it has all of those things layered in. But it appears that for those, this is our solution. Like you wouldn't tell someone who had cancer, go to the podiatrist, okay? Or just pray to God. No, we use everything at our tools. We pray. By the way, there might be a miracle that cures us, but let's go there. And what I do fear is I bet there have been people in good-minded and a well-meaning spiritual leader or someone, oh, you don't need that. I've got you covered. And I bet there have been people who've died, but if they could have been in these rooms, they wouldn't have had to do that, Chad.
Why do you think AA is AA and not the Oxford group? There's a reason why they broke off from the Oxford group, which was a Christian movement, because there was far too many desperate alcoholics who couldn't say that Christ was their savior, and they fell through the cracks. And Bill Wilson wasn't willing to do that anymore. He's like, no. He just used this simple thing. We don't even know where it came from. This phrase, "this God of your understanding," it's a total accident. There's no historical record of where it came from anywhere, other than Ebby said it to Bill, and it was like this poof. It was like, oh, right. I mean,
yep. And so many of those people, if you give the time and the room to do that, when we drew near to him, he disclosed himself from that person that just can't handle the name. Give them enough time and they'll flower into it. Many of them will.
oh yeah,
You know,
yeah.
and so yeah.
Dude, it's impossible that it happened for me. Like that wasn't gonna happen, dude. I had my mind made up about, like, I was very comfortable in seeking a God of my understanding, one that is all inclusive, never exclusive for those who earnestly seek. As long as I was willing to go out there and help guys through some steps, and as long as I was willing to look at my own, do my own inventory stuff and make the amends for the past. Because again, this isn't like recovery isn't an act of will. It's about being stripped to the bone, right? It's like you take a guy who's hopeless, you have a shimmer of hope, but there has to be, the honesty of it is like this. You don't know who you are at all. You think that you do. Let's find out who you really are. And we do that with the inventory, right? We do that with, and let's really share this with another person. I'm talking about the stuff you take to the grave. We're going to talk about this stuff We're gonna sort this out. We're gonna figure out what the character defects are. We're gonna ask God whatever understanding it is that we have to remove help to remove these shortcomings, and then we're gonna make amends. We're really gonna go out there and make amends to those we have harmed, and we're really going to each day try to seek God, and we're really going to try and carry this message to another alcoholic and to practice these spiritual principles in all of our life. We're really going to do that stuff, and that brings about this spiritual change. That brings
It's
about
the action. It's the action. Listen, faith without works is dead. And so much of where I've come to now, I've my faith and my connection has never been better than it ever has been, in my life. And I'm putting in for me. I'll just say for me, for Orthodoxy, has really helped me. I was a guy I left a career to go to seminary. Like I was willing to drop my net and do whatever it took. It wasn't about a want to or a vim and vigor or seeing that it was everything, but it has to be, it's action. God is not a scholastic endeavor. God is not having the right confessional thing. Just for me, like that's not it. Like you have to do it. You have to live it. And it has to be the best you can, a daily thing. And it's going to require some sacrifice and lots of things. If you want to go further in and really blossom into something. And so for me, that's where AA is allowing me to, for me, do the things I need to do to open up to God. And then I also have other things that are layering right on top and like really helping me out. Like I know I shared the Jesus prayer with you and some others, like that's been blowing my doors off. And along with some other things. And so I think we'll be good, Chad. We're coming up here on a couple hours. What I'd like to do, if you wouldn't mind, is we probably talked their ears off now. I think it would make some sense for us to come back in. And we keep talking about this program of action. Like, wouldn't it be cool? Like maybe we walk through the steps, just kind of go down the steps and talk about what the action is along with it. And I'd like to, and probably, I don't know that we can get through 12 steps in another conversation, but let's just keep it going. What do you think?
I'm all in, dude. That'd be great. I think there's a lot that can be said. There's a lot of misconception around powerlessness and unmanageability and insanity and God's care and inventory, all that stuff. I'd love to go through all that stuff. No doubt. I mean,
Cool.
That's my to do.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorite things to do, and I'd love to be able to share with people a little sneak peek on what that might look like when you go through the work with somebody. So it'd be
Well, Chad, I love you. I'm so glad I got to meet you. You've been a really good friend in my life. We can share so much because we have experienced this thing and we've been saved from the shipwreck.
yeah.
And I appreciate that. And I love what you add. I like how you think about things differently and the way you see the world. And so and I appreciate you. So one of the things Chad has done is we have this daily thing, and I've just kind of blown it off. So again, I told you the little things. I just met with my sponsor, and so one of the things I'll commit to you is I'm going to continue to kick that back up again because you didn't stop. So it was a great example. So I just want you to know that you inspire me, and I'm happy we're walking this, trudging the road to happy destiny with each other.
Absolutely, man. Thank you very much, Lance, for taking the time with me. That was a lot of fun, man. I thought we'd covered a lot of stuff. And I'm glad we finally got to do this.
Absolutely. Love you, brother. We'll be back.
All right, man. Later.